Coffee gets more expensive by the day, and I want to show you why.
The world's two largest coffee producers are facing some of the worst drought conditions of the century.
Coffee is likely to get more expensive.
The price of Arabica coffee has surged to its highest level since 1977.
Cost of coffee is actually at its highest in decades.
So you're standing in the supermarket aisle and you're looking at coffee. If you're like me, you look at the prices before choosing. Then you get a shock. WTF, what is going on here? Is it the supermarket chain that is taking the opportunity of this inflation narrative going on and raising the prices? Or is it the coffee brand that is doing that? Who can I blame here? Well, you're not alone. And to answer this, we need to dig a little bit deeper. Because of a production drop in Brazil, who is producing the majority of coffee worldwide, you are, or at least should be, paying at least double for your average cup of coffee by now. But just saying that this is a supply and demand issue is a bit too simplified. We need to look at why the supply is dropping. I'm talking with Lars from Lykke Coffee Farms, who we, by the way, made a full documentary about to go deeper in what actually is going on.
My name is Lars Hilengrim, and I'm one of the co-founders of Lykke Kaffegårdar, or Lykke Coffee Farms. And we're currently in our small little roastery here in south of Stockholm in Hökarängen. Coffee has always been treated as something that it's every man's right to consume coffee. So you just drink it, and you don't reflect.
In the world today, we're growing coffee at 11 million hectares of land, and we have a potential of doing it at 32 million. That number is going to half by 2050.
It's an unfortunate thing that everybody thinks that the way to go to do it cheaper and more profitable is to go synthetic. It could actually be the other way around. Organic practices are even cheaper.
The reason why we're not going to be able to grow coffee in 2050 is because of climate change. So we need to figure out ways to mitigate that.
There's a lot of powers that work against you when you're trying to walk away from synthetic inputs or chemical fertilizer. Those systems are so tied into the money makers of the fertilizing businesses.
Lars's whole life has revolved around coffee. He's traveled the world, building relationships to figure out how to make the coffee as good as possible.
Coffee thrives at a temperature of like 24 degrees Celsius. It's a tropical plant. What reports keep on confirming is as temperatures rise on the planet, coffee is going to be further threatened. The agricultural sector is also one of the biggest contributors to the climate effects and the global warming.
This is a sustainability issue right here and now. This is not about a fluffy number about something that's going to happen in the future. This is the question whether we will have coffee to drink and enjoy in a couple of years or not. Why is this happening? And what is happening exactly?
The lower elevations are the ones where the temperatures increases first. So we need to move up and up and up the mountains. And the further up the mountain, the smaller the amount of land available. So what we need to do is lowering the temperatures in the farms in the lower elevations. And the only way of doing that is by shading it more, creating more green corridors where we have an increased biodiversity.
If we're going to see coffee in the future, we're going to have to drastically change the way we're producing it. So we're going to have to get rid of that monocultural systems where just coffee grows and no other life is prominent. And that's very critical in a country like Brazil.
Brazil has been painted as the villain in this story. The droughts and higher temperatures have caused fields drying up and forest fires burning down the coffee trees. And all of this because of how most of the coffee here is grown.
The majority of coffee that is produced in Brazil, it's done on monocultural fields where it's just big fields of one breeding of coffee. And there's no shade trees, there's no birds. So everything is one monocultural thing. And that makes the plant really dependent on synthetic inputs, agrotoxics, chemical pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, essentially things that just gets into the soil and into the ground.
It's not really self-sufficient. Devastating land, devastating people, devastating life. But if you look back at what sort of nature was and farming was before we started doing that, you wouldn't go and fertilize a forest because the forest is like an ecosystem. Imagine putting fertilizer in the Amazons. It's just like silly, right?
So what can we do to change this? Well, ironically, the same thing that is good for the quality of the coffee is also what is best from a sustainability perspective. Whoa, big surprise!
What we need to see is rather a systematic change where we have coffee grown within nature. When you plant a magnitude of trees and you start shading your coffee fields, that's where you can drastically lower the temperature. And lowering the temperature is going to keep the moisture and the humidity in the soil. If you're running a farm in a system of regenerative agroforestry, you're creating something that is full of life within your farm. And I think that's essentially what the whole purpose of doing agriculture is.
High five.
So
You're adding life. You're feeding your soil with more life. You're not just treating it like a bank account where you just withdraw and withdraw. And so that's when you're going to see the quality aspect of things, because you can improve quality because the tree is much more healthy. Climate-wise, there's a major impact we can do in transitioning more into agroforestry.
Okay, but if we know this, how did we get to this point?
Power has always been lying with the Western countries that are buying the green beans. So the coffee is traded as a commodity, similar to stainless steel. And that has obviously effects of supply and demand. But the farmer has never been really empowered to controlling the price aspect. In basically all coffee producing countries, the farmers are moving away from producing coffee because it's not a profitable business. So the younger generations, they don't want to stay in the fields producing coffee because it's not making any money. So they want to go to the cities, and I think it's all due to the fact that we've just been undervaluing coffee as a product, taking it for granted, yeah.
For me, it's like super clear. Everybody can read the science of it and realize that something needs to change. But the system is so big, so it's not something that happens overnight. So I think that we need to really change how we value coffee and how we look at coffee. I usually say to people that drink less coffee but pay more for the coffee that you're drinking. Buy your coffee from companies that show transparency and show that they're actually dedicated to making changes. And maybe this is your farm. Spent 25 years growing coffee.
What I've learned when I worked around coffee now for the last 6 months is that the farmers who are doing the hardest work here are getting almost no benefit from the rising prices. When the climate effects turn the weather against them, they are sitting there with all the risk. They lose their valuable income. But for the rest of us, it doesn't really affect our lives in a substantial way. We might pay a little bit more for our coffee, but that's it.
And it's a beautiful day to dry coffee today. Yeah. Not many clouds. A little bit windy. The sun's out, so.
Coffee prices haven't moved with the market for the last 50 years, and the farmers in low-income countries are the ones who have paid for it. So it's time for a change now.
Clean.
What you can do is to stop taking coffee for granted and just expect it to be provided for free in every office. Start appreciating it for what it is. Search for better quality, ask for origin, but don't trust the fair trade or organic labels because they don't really mean anything except that the brand is big enough to pay the fee to slap on the label on the package. It might still be grown in monocultural, biodiversity-destroying mega fields. And in the end, it's your call.
So my dream future, I see myself with my love for coffee. I see coffee as a tool to be able to make positive impact in the world. And then at the same time, a bonus is that I get to drink delicious coffee, right? So that's also beautiful.
Your South African wild side.
I tell you, the wild side of life.
The wild side.
And now I need to have some coffee. See you in the next one.